We're very close to a quorum, so
Okay.
we're all set.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the April 2022 meeting of Manhattan Community Board 1's Land Use, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. I'm Patrick Cannell, chair of the committee. Laura Starr is our co-chair, who, if she hasn't been able to join us yet, will be joining us soon, I'm sure. Also with us is our Director of Planning and Land Use, Diana Sweetai. 3 items on our agenda tonight, no resolutions planned, but we do want to hear some new news from old friends. First up is from the Economic Development Corporation. Our good friend Gigi Lee, who's now Vice President of Government and Community Relations, and Orion Hinckley are going to present on the South Street Seaport concession RFP that folks may remember. This issue came up a couple of years ago, I believe either pre-pandemic or just around the beginning of the pandemic. And we issued a resolution on it, but I understand that the RFP is about to go out again. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gigi and Orion and have you guys present.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Let's see, get the screen shared. Let me know when, oh, everyone's over here now. Hang on 1 second, sorry, so Gigi can follow.
Oh, it's fine. I just watch the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yes, thank you. We did present back in right before, I think it was February 2020, as we were being awarded the concession agreement from SBS. We came to the community board to let them know what was going on, some of the goals behind the concession. And I think at that resolution, there was some quality of life kind of parameters that were set. And so we've, obviously those are incorporated in any sub concession agreement that we enter into. So tonight, yeah, I just want to brief map that you've all seen many times before, go over the DMAP streets and kind of the easements and different varying factors around them, give you an overview of the concession again, and then just do a status update on where we're at today, and then discuss kind of next steps and kind of ideas, and I'd love to get your feedback. So it's this historic South Street Seaport, the city-owned assets going from Pier 15 to the New Market building and then the Upland blocks. The former streets lie within the Upland blocks, and they were demapped in 1983, right at the beginning, right when the marketplace lease was originally entered into. The
Hold on.
Can you hear this?
Okay, I'm muted.
All right. The so Howard Hughes, or the marketplace lease and the museum were both granted basically access easements within this demapping. So if the city ever tries to enter into an agreement or give rights to the former streets that is not the museum or the marketplace lease lessee, which is HHC in this case, they have veto right or consent or veto rights basically to that. So that's a very important factor to remember in this RFP. And then also, in addition, the marketplace lease lessee or Howard Hughes is also responsible for surface area maintenance, repair, and security of, this is our joint maintenance area as we refer to it, and that is include that the former streets are within that. So obviously kind of what our activities need to be kind of spoken for there in terms of what Howard Hughes has to clean up after us. Some visuals of the former streets facing in the various directions, kind of at the center of Fulton. In the concession agreement. So yes, when we came to you right in February 2020, we were just finalized with FCRC, and on March 20th, 2020, the comptroller registered the contract, which we view as like the notice to proceed and when we could begin entering agreements. So it's a 5-year total term, 1-year option, or sorry, 1-year term with 4 renewal options with an expiration through March 2025. And as I reiterated, Howard Hughes or the museum can or must consent to any third-party events. They even had to consent to EDC being granted the concession in the former streets. That's how far this easement goes. And so kind of 2 things here, like events or one-off activities happening fewer than 7 days are defined as permits in the subconcession or the concession agreement. And EDC can directly enter into those agreements without any SBS or sign off or an RFP. And then events or activities occurring more than 7 days, that requires the RFP, which we've now are in our 2nd round of, and SBS is still the signatory on those documents. And then last but not least, why EDC was granted this concession to begin with is that 95% of the revenue, 5% is the fee to the city. So 95% of the revenue received is designated for non-capitally eligible expenses or non-capitally ordinary repairs in the South Street Seaport Historic District. So we issued rolling after the meeting, getting the quality of life parameters in 2020, we issued an RFP in summer 2020, not really knowing what was to expect from the pandemic. Obviously, being optimistic that possibly the fall could lead to some, social gatherings. And unfortunately, we only received 1 response for the outdoor bar and seating area, which was a concept to provide basically more additional seating to the restaurant that was there. And actually, in fact, they never, during that time, we never in 2020. Sorry, we never entered into a subconcession agreement with Howard Hughes until April 2021 because they just didn't need the space, and things were pretty bad in 2020. So that's kind of, I know there's been some questions about revenue received in this. So the very first agreement entered was April 2021, and that went through March 19, 2022, as when we can only release give terms. So that first agreement that was for the the Garden Bar, and Howard Hughes was a member of that response. And so we've received to date $110,000 so far. And minus the 5% fee to the city, we have this about almost $105,000 set up and set aside for the non-capitally eligible expenses for seaport improvements. Unfortunately, from a very minute detail in how I worded a response in the Q&A for the RFP, I was unable to give any renewal options to the subconcession respondent. And so therefore, there was a hard expiration date, March 19th, 2022. And so we had to reissue an RFP to either, get the Garden Bar going back again. Hopefully now businesses are catching back up. People are positive about what's to come next. And so we hope to, hope to get some more responses this time for other activities in the Seaport, farmers market, one-off events, yoga classes, different things. We really, hoping to see it all. And so, yes, our RFP, the first submission is coming due this week. It's live right now with 2 other submissions in May and June. So hopefully, we're speaking with, different entities, trying to get them excited about this opportunity to potentially create some programming in the Seaport. And then in addition, this summer, we do have an intern, or I have an intern coming on board, and we are really, I think in the February 2020 meeting, there was a big push from the community board on calendaring and just awareness or public awareness to these opportunities. And my goal for this is to really set up a section on EDC's website to make it a very simple application to put in an idea. Hey, I want to do a yoga class one time, and and it's a very easy and not a daunting RFP to respond to if you have a simple kind of activity. And so that's the kind of the program that I'll be working on with the intern this summer to get up a calendaring and a simple kind of application on our website for the permits, the events that are occurring fewer than 7 days. So that I'll pause there and see if they have any questions or comments.
Thanks, Ryan. Let me go down our participants list. I see Paul Goldstein has his hand up. Paul?
Is my audio working?
Yes.
Great. What is the role of the community board? Are you going to bring these street events to the community board in advance before they're put on?
Thank you for the question, Paul. I think certainly, I mean, the role of the community board in liquor license permitting is a main role, and so any events that would need daily or temporary licenses would need to come before the board. I think we have in our quality of life parameters, we've agreed to providing notice of events for the community board. And again, the calendaring system is really where, people like folks from the community could get information to attend events or to host.
Okay. Paul, anything else?
And in the event anyone from the community has an issue, who should they reach out to? You or Gigi?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, please let us know right away. I search the 311 calls for last summer. I keep an eye on all that, and there haven't been any complaints for the activities that have taken place in the former streets so far. But please let us know right away so we can be sure that the quality of life parameters are being maintained.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Michael Kramer?
Could you speak a little bit more about the garden bar? Is that part of this RFP or potentially part of this RFP? And is that open to the public, or is it just a Chase members exclusive entry? And then the other question I have for you is, what are you going to do with the $104,000 that you've collected so far?
Thank you, Michael. So to answer your first question, I just went back to the slide to show the subconcession areas here in blue. And so the garden bar premise is within the subconcession areas. And so that is essentially part of what's being RFP'd is to, people don't have to propose to put a bar in that exact location, but they could propose to do something else there. And, through public procurement, we would negotiate and do our due diligence. And it does go back to the first indented bullet here that they must consent to all third-party events. So this is part of the RFP. Yes, and then secondly, for the 104,000, I think that's or 100, almost 105. Be optimistic here, and I think that's why we're here tonight to kind of discuss and potentially get some ideas. I think when I'm not sure if it was you, Michael, if there was somebody at the first meeting talking about the street of ships, and so that really stuck with me, and I think that is something that kind of all the parties involved in getting this concession off the ground was to really preserve the the culture of the seaport and the historic nature. And so I think so my project list, while this money isn't large yet, and hopefully over 5 years it will grow and it can be either go towards one significant project or can be aided for maritime education or vessel repairs, because they are, and we all know they're expensive to maintain throughout the year. So that's the main idea, is for it to go towards vessels.
No, thank you. That was the idea we talked about, I guess, 2 years ago. But the question about exclusivity, I mean, are all activities open to the public, or can they be
Yes.
private activities?
Yeah, so the garden bar is completely open to the public. I think, if you're a Chase Sapphire, you have a Chase Sapphire card, you can maybe charge your phone for free or something there. But anyone can enter the garden bar. There's no exclusive or off limit. It's open to the public.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Alice?
Oh, thanks. I'm sorry I missed a little bit of the presentation. I think I'm probably going in the same direction as Michael is about the privatization, our concern for privatizing these streets. So that's interesting. So the bar that was once Chase members only is no longer that somehow taken away from that bar, that garden bar, that requirement, because I remember full well that it certainly was part of it originally.
I think so they originally, I think they had a turf, like a turf section that extended beyond the bar a little bit. And that was what they called the Sapphire Lounge. And that may have been seating areas where you had to be a Chase member. But over the past year and, certainly hearing the comments now, we can, we have a bite at the apple. We're entering into another subconcession agreement, or potentially will be entering into another subconcession agreement for the bar. And so this is, great feedback. I'm pretty sure, I have to go look at the subconcession from last year, but I don't think we allowed any sort of exclusive areas within the former streets. As you said, they are a public, it's a public open space.
Well, that is a huge thing to check on, because there's no question that previously that was not the case. Being a Chase card holder, I always remember having that privilege and thinking that was distinctly unattractive. What sort of assurance is there that all of these subconcessions will ultimately really allow the public who cannot afford to drink in that space on Fulton Street the ability to sit somewhere and use the street? I just am not sure I understand that. And not just that street, but the 4 other streets where the subconcessions are shown on your map. Right.
Well, so
For example, I mean, to be specific, for example, if one of the streets had a yoga class, which I assume you'd have to pay for, and one had a bar, or all 3 had bars or concessions that had something to do with adjacent restaurants, how does the community have any control over what's private and public there in this arrangement that you're presenting?
you raise an interesting point. I think this blue area, the subconcession area, it's about 55,000 square feet. A 15-foot right-of-way needs to be maintained through this area for emergency vehicles. The access can't be blocked to any of the retail establishments. So there's no question that we would be able to block any sort of access or pathways through the streets. Then again, you alluded to multiple bars. I think, I'm not a state liquor authority expert, but I do know there's the 500 feet rule, and you can't have more than 3 liquor licenses within that certain amount of space. So all those would, all these kind of factors are taken into account, and the goal of this concession was for year-round activation at the seaport, not 5 months, shoulder to shoulder. And so that's where I'll leave it.
Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I think that particular point of creating a kind of gated community in this blue section, and frankly, in the grayed out hatching as well, is an immense, it gives me pause. I'll leave it at that. I think it's a mistake, personally. Let me just ask one more question. Is the commercial areas that you have identified, these are where we now see arcade sort of that have been closed in that are restaurants? In the case of Parcel 1 Market Block, that I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but is that correct?
Sorry, repeat the question
The
again?
commercial areas that are in the gray hatch, what are those? Those are Could you just describe what that is specifically?
So-
I'm sorry if you're repeating yourself.
No, I'm not. So those are actually, those gray areas are actually included within the marketplace lease and are essentially what we would call sidewalk seating. So they're allowable areas for commercial activity out like on the sidewalk.
Do they have to be open? Are they open or closed?
You mean open air? There's no.
Yeah.
Yes, these aren't part of the building. These are open air. Yeah.
Well, so there's no so I thought what I'm looking at, I thought was enclosed. So you're saying that these are not with high walls and not with glazing. They're completely open. So just like series of tables that are like a sidewalk cafe. Is that what these are? It's just not clear
yes.
what this
So-
is.
Yeah, so on parcel 1 market block where you referenced, that was where the 10 Corso Como was. And so there's an overhang, but there might be planters, but there's no like wall or barrier that separate, these commercial areas from the cobblestone streets.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Alice.
Anything
Vicky?
else? We'll take, your everything into all your great comments into consideration. And certainly, so thank you for the feedback. It was helpful.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Vicky Cameron?
Thank you, Patrick. I sort of want to pick up on what Alice was starting. I just want to say that a couple of weekends ago, I think the sun just came out, and I went to South Seaboard, guess around lunch hour, and I love the words activation. You know what activation of South Seaboard boiled down to? A ton. Just eating and drinking, mostly young folks. The amount of noise and congestion was so unpleasant that I, as a resident 1 block away from there, ran back home. And I was sort of wondering your thoughts about people who actually live there and consider this to be their home, because where we're heading now is nothing but monetization, catering to tourists and the young folk who come down here and drink, and once they drink, they get incredibly loud. There's no real grand space for, the city residents to just come and stroll and sit and enjoy, some shaded area with some trees, maybe, benches. I'm a little concerned about this activation, because what that really boils down to is what I described, and that's not very pleasant for New Yorkers. While it may be pleasant for tourists and the financial gain of Howard Hughes, it's not very fun for us. So you talk about that a little bit, about your vision and my experience.
Oh, Orion, are you still there?
I don't know who's not.
Classic mute. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Vicky, for your comments. The same holds true for the former streets as it does for Pier 17. There's no amplified music allowed after 10 p.m. And the closest, the former streets, there's not very many residences like really within earshot or close by. And the commercial activity outside of these former streets or this concession area is is something I can't necessarily shed a light on. I think like I said, if there's problems, we should be notified. There's 311 for noise complaints, and that we should to hear actual the facts and to know where we can help out is best.
Well, it's just general, this picture that you have here, this bar divides the space in half, takes out the best part, and the restaurant on that corner on the other side takes up the whole street. I mean, I feel like I'm invading people's
Yeah,
know,
spectacular
meals.
talking to him.
And I just think that perhaps this grand plan might be a little overreaching in order to gain what maybe the community is not so crazy about gaining, which is enormous foot traffic, nonstop drinking and screaming, and there should be no music outside on these streets, but yet there is. Anyway, I just think it's very unpleasant. Thank you.
So Vicky, I just wanted, hi, it's Gigi. I just wanted to add a little bit to Orion's answer, which is, he stated at the beginning of the presentation that we only got one response last time. And so we went with that response, right? So I think we're hoping now with rolling admission, with outreach, that we can get a variety of responses, and also for the smaller for smaller community events, or, things that are non-eating, drinking, and more open space, we really encourage groups and individuals to apply for, the one-off events or the less than 7 time events that can, hopefully bring some diversity and maybe, not be the more, crowd drawing, but more for the local residents. So we're really hoping to get a combination or a mixture of uses this time around, and not just that one use.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicky. Gerald Forsberg.
Yeah, I have a few questions. The 110 that's received to date, can you tell me that was how over how many months?
11 and a half or so.
Okay, and that was received primarily through what means? What was what was generating that specifically?
The base fee for the bar.
Oh, the base fee just for the bar. Okay.
Mhm.
And so what's projected for, I guess, this the bar is in the blue area, so that would be a base fee from the sub concession areas, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the bar is just a small portion of this blue area, kind of in the center, and that, so yeah.
Okay, so I guess this, I mean, my understanding from what I'm seeing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so everything in blue essentially has a dollar amount attached to it per square foot. Is that correct for sub concession, except for maybe the 15 width, 15-foot width for emergency vehicles?
Yeah, I guess you could phrase it like that.
Okay, so we're talking about how many square feet, and approximately, I guess where I'm going with the question is what annual amount is expected to be generated here?
We originally, when I was first putting this together, the expected amount was around 80,000. It's hard to know now. The bar is we have a procurement out on the street with the first responses due this Wednesday. So it's hard to know what the bar will be proposed at. Things to keep in mind, that it's basically a ground kind of rent, because the bar needs to be built, infrastructure needs to be put in for Department of Health, and then restrooms for the customers need to be somewhere, and that is outside or within another party's leasehold. And so those are some factors to keep in mind when thinking about the bar and other activations.
Okay, and if I guess the non-capitally eligible improvements that I'm understanding are primarily vessel upkeep. Is that correct?
This is new, and we are open to all suggestions. I think when we first went through this kind of exercise and getting the agreement executed, there was a lot of speak of assisting and aiding the Seaport Museum, and so with legal crafting, this is how that was sort of implemented. And so I think vessels and boats are very expensive to maintain. Not all the repairs are capitally eligible. And then there's a lot of programming that I think could be done with youth groups or various, different community groups on and that entertain maritime education. And I think that kind of supports a lot what I've heard over the past few years coming to these meetings.
And so just to go back to one of the other questions in the blue, well, I guess first of all, the commercial spaces are the commercial areas in gray. That revenue is part of the
Marketplace lease.
for the marketplace lease. Okay, all right, very good. And then going back to my other question with the blue, how many square feet are we talking about here?
It's around 55,000 square feet is the blue. Subtract the 15-foot right away, I think you're around 40,000 square feet. And then as comments have alluded to today, we're not trying to pack every square foot for fee generation. I envision some farmers markets on Little Water Street, or a concert at the top of Fulton and South, or a community concert, or like a 5-star quartet, or so those are just my ideas. I don't know. I'm hoping that somebody has better ones and can propose something fun. But
Sure. No, I mean those are all good ideas. I'd be interested to find out what other ways we could activate public space that is also non-monetary activation of it. But I guess my other question would be, I'm right now looking at and I've been down to the seaport during the summer months and all that too, but I'm looking at I pulled up some photographs here on Google Maps, and I noticed that there's a lot of seating that's placed out in just various seating placed around. And I guess my question is, what safeguards can be put into place to maintain this 15-foot right of way? Because what I'm seeing here is that while there's some 15-foot right of way maintained, there's quite a few quite a bit of spillover maybe from some of these places, and the 15-foot right of way isn't exactly delineated. I would imagine if there's a an emergency, it's very important that there's not street furniture, even movable street furniture that's in the way there. So what can be done to maintain the 15-foot right of way?
yeah, so we actually took care of that in the third amendment of the marketplace lease. We added liquidated damages if the 15-foot right of way is infracted, multiple times. There's obviously the first time there's a warning, and then there's iterations of the notices with more liquidated damages tied to them. So that is how we've this point was raised before, and how we dealt with it. I think the movable planters, I think those are allowed. Actually, I'm not even gonna, I don't know. But I go down there and check myself, take photos, and make sure it's maintained. And I think, and you did mention to non-monetary uses of the streets. Right now we're working on the Bloomberg Square Mile. I'm giving a license to them, and so that's going to be through the through this concession agreement. It's only 1 day, so it's a permit. We can sign off, and that's it's a charity event. We do the Christmas tree lighting. We're working on putting some art. There's going to be art installations that have been popping up over the past couple of years. So those are obviously the other types of things that we're trying to do there that are non-monetary and open to the public.
Thanks. One last question is the events greater than 7 days. Could you give an idea of what that might be? I'm just having a hard time thinking of events that I've can imagine that would be greater than 7 days. But what would be an example of something
Like
that?
a fall farmers market occurring every Saturday through the fall, or a bar that's open 7 days of the summer.
Oh, okay. A bar that's open as a something that would be on Saturdays wouldn't be consecutive days, but you're talking about 7 days even throughout the extended period. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Anytime it's an event or an activation and it's more than 7 times, whether it's qualifies as a subconcession.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. Richard Corman, you're going to get the last question. We're going to wrap this up as we're over a half hour on this one at this point. Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Sorry if you answered these questions before. I have basically two. The first is if you get multiple proposals, multiple respondents to this, what will be the process of selecting the winner, if you will, and what role will the community board have in that?
We're hoping for multiple responses, just so we have a large area here and can, set up different kind of situations for the varying proposals to hopefully, be able to meet everyone's desires. I think, and then there's the selection criteria in the RFP that will be weighted and viewed for any given proposal. As I said, there's veto rights, so that's like the plan Z. But then, folks need to take in mind if you're proposing some eating and drinking establishment, there's all these Department of Health requirements. There's restrooms, or you need to be within a certain walking distance, and so that will all be taken into account.
And would the community board have an opportunity to weigh in on the final selection?
Well, we normally don't have the community board weigh in on our procurement selections. I think that being said, that there's certainly, I called this meeting. I'm here, want to speak about this, and I want to come back and make sure that we're we're all aligned and happy with what's going on in your district. So we're happy to circle back either midway through the I don't know if you saw earlier. There's three periods of responses due in April, May, and June. So maybe we could come back May or even after all the responses and kind of give a recap, and maybe we can talk about some of how, what my aspirations are for the summer, if that would be something that would be appealing to you all.
It would be to me. Yeah, I hope, Patrick, that's something that the committee would like.
That's absolutely great, and we'd welcome that. Sorry, Richard, did you ask your second question?
Yeah, I have one more question. So similarly, on the money issue, how will the decisions be made about how that money in fact will be spent, and the money that you have already, as well as the money to be received, and what role can the community board play in those decisions?
I think this is actually the bigger role of the community board, is to help us, identify potential uses for this money. Certainly, legal wise, we like for EDC to, enter into a funding agreement with a party. There's certain, requirements need to be made, but I think that's something I would certainly love to hear more about. I know we all went through a long land use process last year, and maybe what this original intended use of the money is no longer what the community board feels like it should be used for. And so we're open to ideas. I brought the idea of the ship investments, or the varying kind of improvements or just maintenance was kind of spoken about a couple of years ago, and so I reiterated that. I brought that back up tonight, and it seems that there's favorable kind of opinions about that, but we're open and ears here. So please feel free to reach out if you have any other ideas that we can implement.
Okay, thank you for that, Patrick. I think we need to have opportunities to weigh in on that somehow. Make sure we participate in those discussions.
Absolutely, and we'll be following up. Orion and Gigi, thanks for the presentation. We look forward to hearing how the initial round of responses goes. And Orion, we will take you up on your offer to come back probably in the summertime and give us an update. So thanks very much.
Patrick. Just one last quick thing. If you guys are interested in reading the RFP, it is publicly posted on the EDC website.
Thanks. How can folks find that? Is there a easy way to figure it out?
Yeah, EDC website, I think, and then there's opportunities, and it's in the leasing opportunities section.
Okay, great. And then when it comes time to push out those individual opportunities, Orion, like you were talking about, if somebody wants to sign up for a yoga class, or when you get that platform up, please let our office know so we can push that out to our wider group as well. Okay.
Okay, absolutely. And yeah, not to say, like, certainly we welcome simple applications right now as well. So please let everyone know if you know anyone that is potentially interested. They can certainly respond to this, and no need to wait. So thanks for everyone's time this evening. Appreciate your feedback, and we'll circle back late in a couple months.
Awesome. Thanks. Good to see you both. See you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, everybody, we're going to move on to the second item. Obviously, part of the remit of our committee is economic development. So we're very happy to have with us tonight our friends from the Downtown Alliance to give us what we think. We're going to kind of reboot the notion of a quarterly update on all things happening with the Alliance. And joining us is Tina Prado, Chief of Staff, and Josh Nakowitz, who is Vice President for Economic Development and Research at the Alliance. And they'll give us an update on what's happening there. Tina or Josh?
Thanks so much, Patrick. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and Josh is going to kick things off with some slides that we have. Let me know if you could see that.
There we go.
It's up. Great.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrick, for inviting us, and it's great to be here and great to see everybody. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of sort of the top line data points and what we're seeing in terms of sort of the broad state of the economy in Lower Manhattan, and sort of what we're beginning to see in terms of a sort of tentative nascent recovery in our commercial district downtown. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing to help our small businesses and walk through some of our placemaking activities. And I'll turn it back over to Taina, who can give you an update on some of what we've been doing on the operations front. So starting out with research, I think most of the folks here are aware that the Downtown Alliance really for the last 10 or 15 years has been keeping track at a really granular level of what's been happening in the real estate market in Lower Manhattan. And that's office leasing, retail leasing, residential developments, what we're seeing in the hospitality market as well. We do a whole series of surveys on a regular basis, including a yearly tourism survey. We release 3 quarterly market reports, as well as a more in-depth year in review report that covers the fourth quarter of the year. You want to move to the next slide, Dana? So I'll give you a quick update sort of as what we're seeing in terms of the office market, which I know has been of great concern to a lot of folks in the city's economic development community, and continues to be a concern for us at the Downtown Alliance. And again, just before I get into this, all of the data that we collect as an organization is made available for free on our website at downtowny.com. So all of our reports are available online. We have a voluminous amount of data that's available, including archived reports on our website. And if there's any additional data points that anybody on the committee or the community board as a whole is interested in, please feel free to reach out to me and we can try to put that together for you. So, 2021, we began to see a little bit of recovery in our office market in Lower Manhattan. We saw just under 3 million square feet of leasing in 2021, which was a substantial improvement from 2020, which was one of the worst leasing years on record in our market downtown, not surprisingly, but is still far below our 5-year average leasing rates, far below where we were in 2019, certainly. The office market continues to be seriously challenged. We have a historically high vacancy rate, just under 22% vacancy in Lower Manhattan. That is the highest of the 3 Manhattan office markets, but not substantially so. So we're seeing a substantial issue with office vacancy across all 3 markets. And I will say that some of that vacancy is accounted for by 3 large buildings, 60 Wall Street, 175 Water, and 111 Wall Street, that are completely vacant right now. And those were vacancies that we had been anticipating pre-COVID. So that really can't be, those 3 buildings being vacant can't really be chalked up to the current crisis. But it is a concern. We have heard some rumors in the market that there's been a lot of new leasing activity over the sort of first 3 months of this year. So where we are cautiously optimistic that there is some activity in the market, and that 2022 will look a little bit better on the office leasing side than 2021 did. If I go to the next slide. On the retail market, there is a little bit of better news. The pace of retail openings in 2021 returned to sort of the pre-pandemic level of new retail leasings that we usually see in Lower Manhattan. We saw 100 new retailers open in 2021, and 84 retailers close in 2021, which is a significant decrease in terms of retail closures from 2020. And in fact, the 84 retailers that closed over the course of 2021 was fewer than the number that closed in Lower Manhattan in 2019. So we ended the year in 2021 with actually a net increase in the number of new retailers, ground floor retailers in the district, which is great news for us. In terms of foot traffic, the return to work has been slow, has been sluggish. We're seeing somewhere in the range of 35-36% occupancy for major office buildings in Lower Manhattan, which clearly is way off of what we would have seen in 2019. A big part of the return to work in our district in Lower Manhattan has been driven by government workers. Mayor de Blasio in 2021 was very aggressive about bringing city employees back, and that's been a big help for retailers. We have a network of pedestrian counters in Lower Manhattan. We've got 10 locations, and again, that information is available as well on our website. And we did see in March about 4.1 million total footfalls. That's cumulatively for the entire month, for our entire network of sensors. That's up 32% from the previous month, and is the largest amount of pedestrian traffic we've seen in the district since the pandemic started. So that seems to be heading in the right direction. Again, we're cautiously optimistic that that's sort of moving in the direction we'd like to see it going in. So small businesses, since we obviously all know that our local mom and pop retailers have been extraordinarily challenged over the last 2 years, and the Downtown Alliance has stepped up, and I'm personally incredibly proud of the work that we have done across all of our departments to really try to be as creative and as nimble as possible, and try to steer some significant resources towards our small businesses. We've been helping them reconfigure their spaces. We've been providing direct cash support to some of our businesses, and I think that's made a real impact. And these are some testimonials that we've gotten from businesses in the neighborhood that I think support that. Do you want to go to the next slide, Dana? So just a quick overview of some of the programs that we've done over the last 2 years, starting with our Small Business Rental Assistance Grant, which was really our first effort, and this was the spring of 2020, we were able to pool some of our resources at the Alliance, as well as getting some very generous contributions from major property owners in the neighborhood, including Howard Hughes, Silverstein, and Brookfield, and put together a fund of about $800,000 that we used to provide about $610,000 in direct grants to 61 small businesses in the neighborhood. I can proudly report that of the 61 businesses that we supported in 2021, I believe as of now, only 2 have since closed. We spent the rest of that way. We took the rest of that money and invested in a program with a company called StreetSense to provide sort of one-on-one, in-depth consulting sessions for about 27 small businesses in the district to help them going into the summer and fall of 2020 think about how they could safely reopen their businesses and rethink the way their operations were working, both to be sort of financially sound in a very different and very challenging environment, and to keep their customers and their employees safe. Right now, we're working on a new version of our digital innovation grant that we're calling Get Social. That is going to provide one-on-one, really in-depth one-on-one assistance to 10 businesses in Lower Manhattan to help them think about how they can do social media better and really leverage social media to drive customers into their businesses. It's a sort of pilot program for us. We have funding to work with 10 businesses this spring. We've gotten a great response so far. We're already out. We've gotten a substantial number of applications. And hopefully, if that's successful over the next month or two, we'll be able to expand that next year and serve even more businesses. We also ran a program called with a company called Bento Box to help small businesses, small restaurants, sort of bypass the third-party delivery apps, which really charge them outrageous, usurious fees. And that program has generated, I think the last email I saw, over $200,000 in business, in revenue for the participating businesses. If you want to move on to the next. We also launched a student self-care pass last fall. We brought in a new director of storefront business engagement, Destiny Batista, who's been a really great addition to our team, and has put together an effort to try to drive some business and some support to the sort of personal care businesses in Lower Manhattan. And these are places like nail salons, barber shops, fitness studios, places like that have been really, really impacted by the collapse of the daytime office population. These were businesses that really relied on them. So we've partnered with some of the local colleges, and we're getting information out. We're getting these sort of discounts out to students at local colleges, timing it around. We did one last year around their finals week at the end of November into December, saying sort of, you're stressed out at your finals, take advantage of these sort of wellness businesses to kind of take care of yourself and the law for a small discount. And that was really successful, and the business liked it. We're rolling that out again in the spring as they go through another round of finals. And then finally, placemaking. So we, the Alliance has been involved in the past with placemaking. We've done a few placemaking projects. I think some folks on this committee will remember our Game On sort of summer activation series that we used to do along Water Street. We really made a decision in 2020 that we need to double down on placemaking, with the idea that this is really something that can activating public spaces, activating vacant storefronts. This is something that if we make a real investment here, can bring sort of life and activity and vibrancy to the neighborhood, and hopefully also help encourage people to begin to come back to their offices. And when people do come back to their offices, make them feel comfortable, make them really enjoy the neighborhood. We did a couple of projects that we did last year in 2021 that you see on this slide. Talking Heads were 2 really impressive kind of monumental sculptures that we put up in the plaza in front of 85 Broad Street at the foot of Stone Street. Art on the Ave, which was a project to activate a series of vacant storefronts along Broadway last fall with art. These were all local artists, largely artists of color as well, which was really successful. And then also a partnership last fall with an organization called ArtBridge that brought in 2 local New York City artists to create sort of artistic wraps of the light poles along Broadway that the downtown Alliance owns. Run to the next slide, Dana. Just to give you just a quick preview of some of our upcoming projects. At 85 Broad Street, we're actually working on this. Hopefully over the next few weeks, you'll see this going out. These are a project called Moon Garden. We're partnering with a collective of artists in Montreal to bring these they're sort of light up, inflatable kind of snow globe type sculptures. I'm not an arts guy, I'm probably not describing it super well, but they should be pretty cool. They've toured around the United States. They have a projector inside, which brings up this kind of cool sort of street scene. Those will be installed for 4 weeks at the Plaza at 85 Broad Street. And then next winter, so January of 2023, we're going to be working with Josh D'Souza, who's a local New York City-based designer, to install this sort of light sculpture called Geo at the Plaza at One New York Plaza, which would be a really cool, sort of very vibrant, very colorful installation. And then finally, and I'll try to wrap this up quickly, as we've gone on for a while. We've also been investing heavily in some new live programming. Last May, we partnered with an organization called On Guard Arts, which is a local Brooklyn-based sort of emerging arts organization. They're really great to work with. We organized a program called Downtown Live that happened over 2 weekends last May, brought in nearly 1,000 people into Lower Manhattan, who hopefully spent some money at local businesses as well, featured over 30 emerging New York City-based artists at 3 interesting spaces, some public, some quasi-public, 2 plazas, 1 plaza at 1 Battery Park, the Arcade at 85 Broad Street, and a loading dock at 4 New York Plaza, which we transformed into a sort of makeshift stage, which was really cool. We're bringing On Guard Arts back this June for a 3-week performing art festival called Downtown Stories. This is going to be very different from what we did last year. So we're actually working with On Guard Arts and a group of local New York City-based playwrights to commission some original work. One of which is going to be a documentary theater piece that is going to be presented at the Methodist Church on John Street over 3 weeks. That is going to tell the story very creatively of 8 to 10 small mom and pop businesses in the neighborhood who we've been interviewing. We've got a great playwright who is taking those stories and those narratives and putting them together into a site-specific theater piece, which we're really excited about. And then we're doing 2 different sort of whimsical, kind of quasi-historic walking tours of the neighborhood that will highlight some unique locations around Lower Manhattan that folks may not think to go into. And all of these are going to be connected to local businesses. So for the walking tours, they'll all be free. The documentary theater piece will be completely free of charge. The walking tours will have a sort of quote unquote ticket that will be a voucher that you get. It'll be a $15 to $20 voucher at a local small business. And it'll be a different small business each week for the walking tours. So we're really excited about these. The program is still in development, and we'll definitely make sure the community board gets a full detailed information about this when we're a little bit further along in developing the project. And with that, I can turn it over to Taina, who can talk through some of our communications and operations.
Thanks, Josh. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Great. So I'm just going to go, I know we had a long presentation, but we wanted to give everybody sort of a robust, full presentation on what we're doing. So just in terms of the communications department, the communications team works really hard to be the megaphone for the neighborhood and share everything that's going on with residents, workers, and visitors who come to the district. Our next sort of big event, aside from what Josh was talking about, is of course, Dine Around Downtown. It's going to happen on June 7th at 20 Liberty on the Plaza. During the pandemic, unfortunately, we had to pivot. We couldn't do the event outside, but we did do a virtual home cooking class with local chefs, and money that was raised was given to food charities and for food insecure individuals. So we're really proud of being able to continue that, but definitely looking forward to returning to 20 Liberty Plaza. And obviously, local restaurants will be participating, and we're actually going to be paying for the restaurants, I'm sorry, won't have to pay for anything to participate. We're sort of covering the cost for them. Next. And, the next, I'd like to just sort of remind people, in addition to what Josh was sharing, and of course all the work the communications department does, the main focus of bids are always to keep the neighborhood clean and safe. Here are some of the numbers of the work in terms of sanitation that we can report from last year. Obviously, you can see the numbers for yourself. They really do sort of make an impact, and we're very proud of the work that the guys and gals do on the street to keep us looking good and feeling good in the neighborhood. In addition to that, of course, we continue working with Bowery Residents Committee to provide homeless outreach services to the neighborhood. We do that in partnership with Trinity Wall Street. They've been partners with us for a long time. And last year, actually, our program had 5,000 direct contacts with homeless men and women in our district, which led to 74 actual housing and recovery placements of individuals. So that's 75 people that really we feel we've made a significant impact on their lives. Next, I know a lot of you know about this, and the rest of the board, I've shared this information with you guys. We launched in December our compost pilot program. You'll see from the map here the 10 locations of where we have these bins. They're available 24/7, accessible on the smartphone app, of course. But the one thing I wanted to point out are some of the statistics that we've been able to gather for January and February, which shows that we're doing great. The bins were, collected almost 2 tons each month of organic waste. The bins were accessed by 1,000 times pretty on the average for the month, by sort of slowly increasing number of users. You'll see the top 3 locations as we see here. We're working obviously in partnership with the Department of Sanitation to do this. It's a pilot program, so we're sort of learning as we go about what we can do to sort of either expand it or improve it. So, I mean, I know this is, a little bit outside of economic development, but for us, the 3 pillars of economic development really is the communications, the operations component, and of course, a lot of the programming that Josh and his team do for research. So that's, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing. So I know we gave people a lot of information, but we're happy to, of course, take any questions, or, if anybody has anything specific they want to ask us about, happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Dinah, and thank you, Josh. That was an awesome presentation. It's great to hear from you guys again. It's clear you're up to many, many, many good things, and that's a huge relief. Personally, I just want to say thanks too. It's been a great comfort to see you guys so hard at work, and to see those, the Red Streets teams out on the street in the financial district, particularly, and the vans around. It's just been awesome, and just kudos to you guys for really digging in when there was a crisis. I can tell you that it has been noticed in this neighborhood for sure. Let's see if we have hands up. I see Rosa has her hand up, and then Alice.
Thank you so much. So truly thank you for everything that you do, because I just like Patrick see your crews out in full force on the streets and in our parks all the time. And I think that the reason why our city down here with these very narrow streets is actually livable is because of a lot of the important work that you guys do. So truly, truly thank you. I am one of the users of your composting bin, because I was so sad that I actually cried when Sanitation got rid of the composting program in buildings. And apparently even though we have over 400 units in our building, we do not have sufficient demand to restart composting, which is incredibly frustrating. So I go to the one at Zuccotti Park, and but I was using it a couple of weeks ago, and there was something wrong with it. I reported it, and I don't know if it ever got fixed, or how that works. Are these like very sensitive, or how?
So thank you so much for sharing that, and we appreciate you using the bins. This is, again, it's a pilot program, so we're sort of learning as we go in terms of the technology with the app, and access, for the people using the app to then open the bin and such. The good thing is that the bins themselves are connected to sort of our home base and sort of in the office, so we get messages and we get alerts in terms of to let us know how things are going with the particular bins. We also, the operations guys, sanitation guys go on a regular basis, almost on a daily basis, to check them. But of course, things happen, and technology sometimes is not always on our side. But I can give you my email address, or even the email address of the person who's running point on this, Rosa. So if there are particular issues that you're noticing at that particular location that maybe we need to sort of do a little bit more due diligence, we'd be happy to sort of follow up with you offline to take care of that.
Oh, sure. Okay. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Thanks, Rosa. Alice?
Yeah, hi, Josh
Hi.
and Tayana. Nice to see you both. And yes, I too offer thanks for what you do, even though I live a little bit further away from it. I wanted to ask if there's a way to increase the level of the community board's review of what's coming down the pike in the future. I think this meeting actually was in part inspired by the fact that we were a little bit surprised to see this competition at 200 Water Street for the benches that I think we're about to review. And I think that's in our privately owned public spaces and in the privatization of the arcades, it would be really helpful that at a minimum, the community gets to know beforehand what they may or may not want to see in these spaces. And specifically 85 Broad, 28 Liberty, and 200 Water come to mind once you mentioned today. So it's not, I don't want to have you see this as a criticism, but rather as just a way to identify what would be best in terms of having a little bit more of an exchange prior to the selection of a competition or that sort of thing, so that the community would be more aware of it. Because I think it was a wonderful competition, an incredible opportunity. I guess you were involved with Van Allen. But I personally, as an architect, knew nothing about it. So it would be just, coming up with other methods to make sure that people, one, can compete in these things when they are available, and two, can opine on the results would be great.
Sure. And thanks for that, Alice. And I think that's certainly something that we're very much aware of. And just a couple of comments on that. First of all, I'm very sorry that there was so much confusion over the project at 200 Water Street. To be very clear, the Alliance was brought in to sit on a panel. It was me and Jessica sat on a panel that was being run by the Design Trust for Public Spaces. So I think we sort of didn't really view it as being an Alliance project. We were part of a much bigger sort of panel that was brought in to review some of these submissions. When we are doing our own projects like Art on the Ave, and we invited the community board, and Tammy Melcher joined us to review some of those applications. We are certainly always interested in trying to find ways to smartly and creatively involve the community to make sure we get good feedback on projects that we're doing ourselves. And if we are ourselves running a design competition like that, we would certainly endeavor to do that.
That would be great. I look forward to seeing more of that exchange. That would be really helpful. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Hey, Josh, thanks for clearing that up, that wasn't led by the Alliance. I think there was some confusion on that point, but that's good to know. And certainly we've gotten a lot of updates over the past years of programs that you guys are putting on. So we appreciate those. But to Alice's point, can't wait to hear more. I don't see any other hands up. Are there any other committee members? Nope. Okay, let me go to members of the public. I don't see any hands up. So with that, thank you both for coming. We'll let you off the hook now. And really, thank you so much for a great presentation. We look forward to seeing you again in 3 months. Come back sooner if you want. But it's really always great to hear from you guys.
Thank you so much. And we'll be sure to send the community board, specific information about the downtown stories and, sort of the things that are happening in the summer once they go live.
Yeah, it looks cool.
Yep. Please join us. Good to see everybody.
Have a nice
We'll be
night,
there.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Josh. Bye, Tanya. Okay, committee members, on to the third and final item on our agenda. We are in the wake of the 200 Water Street application that we looked at last month. We learned some information about an art installation, or I guess that's what we can call it, that was being installed temporarily on the POP space at 200 Water. And it raised some questions about who's in charge of those rules, what those rules are, etc. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Diana to give us an update in a report and to maybe vet some questions through our representatives at the Department of City Planning.
Yes,
Diana?
there was a residual question about the temporary installation that came up while we were reviewing the authorization renewal for 200 Water Street, and we'd gotten information from the applicant about the seating plan. We shared the renderings, and there was a question about what the regulations are for temporary installation in a POPs. When does it trigger a review by the community board? When does it not? So we have since gotten clarification from the Department of City Planning, and I'm going to share my screen here that shows the exact zoning text. For anybody that hasn't been on this page and explored the whole zoning resolution, it's very exciting. I encourage you to get into it. But this is section 9181. And according to the Department of City Planning, similarly to the temporary art installation at 200 Water Street during the winter of 2020 and 2021 called Ziggy, that was in partnership with the Downtown Alliance, the art installation was allowed without a city planning action because it was considered an event under the new Water Street text, which is part of this section 9181, which states events including but not limited to farmers markets, holiday markets, concerts, and performances. Art and cultural exhibitions and festivals are permitted within all publicly accessible open areas and arcades. The utilization of publicly accessible open area or arcade for the promotion of products or services shall not in itself qualify as an event permitted under this section, and that the upcoming installation qualifies under this umbrella of events. And that there is at the end here a requirement that at least 30 days prior to the scheduled date of an event, notification shall be given to the local community board, local council member, and borough president of the nature, size, and duration of the event. That's what I got. Those are the regulations. I know we have a couple of folks on from the Department of City Planning. So if folks have questions, now's the time.
Okay, I see Alice's hand up.
Sorry, Patrick. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks very much. So my understanding is that 30 days prior, we should know about something, but there's nothing else that the community board can opine on. We have no say as to what this event might or might not be. Is that correct?
This is a notification requirement, so that's correct. It doesn't trigger a review or an opportunity to comment. We can always comment. We can always send a letter if we have 30 days advance notice, but there's not a formal process for that.
And did we receive 30 days advance notice for the recent 200 Water Street? I guess we did. I don't know.
In this case, we did. It happened to come up during the review of the 200 Water Street renewal. And we got the renderings and the plan just this past weekend on Saturday. We got a formal notification from the Design Trust. I'll circulate it to the members today, which I suppose is the formal notification. And the installation, I believe, is to go in May 10th.
And stays up for how long? Sorry. Forgot what you said.
I'll have to double check. I believe a year.
How long can an event or a art event or whatever the definition is be up in any publicly owned, a privately owned public space? You said city planning's on. I wonder if they could.
Yeah. And if the Department of City Planning is on, are you able to answer that question about what duration of time it would need to exceed to trigger to be considered something that's not temporary, and that would trigger a discretionary review or approval?
Sure. Let me speak to our POPs manager just to double check, and I can send an email to confirm.
And I also just wanted to get answered what at specifically 200 Water Street we've now waited through the first 5 years or whatever it's been, and nothing's happened. How many times does that? In other words, that can go on infinitely. The number of reviews, that space could be left fallow for another 20 years. Is there any requirement that the developer makes good on the original application or not? I mean, that was a little bit unclear to me the last time. I don't know if that's something maybe we'll have to get back to also. Sorry if I'm not speaking clearly about that, but Diana, you probably get my drift.
If I understand your question, that the authorization can be approved, or the total life of that single authorization can be approved for a maximum of up to 10 years. And after that, it would trigger a reapplication process, I imagine. Is that right, Jasmine?
That's correct. I was going to mention that right now the first authorization was approved for 4 years. Now they have 2 3-year renewals. So this is their first 3-year renewal, and then they'll have a second one if they choose to do so. But afterwards, they would have to go through the whole process all over again, as if it was the first authorization again.
Okay, so it's 10 years in total.
Yes.
Thanks. That's very helpful. Thanks very much, Jasmine. Thanks.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, any members of the public? Seeing none. Okay. Thanks for that review, Diana. Really appreciate it. So we've come to the end of our agenda. So thanks everybody for coming to the land use meeting, and we're adjourned.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you,
See y'all
Patrick.
later.
Bye.
Thank you, Patrick.
Everybody.